Welcome to our channel. This is Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab, and along with my husband Chris, we do thrift flips. We take unwanted, unloved, outdated thrift store finds and then we give them new life. And on our channel, we share the process with you all. So I feel like these are type of items that you always see at the thrift store and you're just like, I'll just pass those by. But I see lots of potential when I see these type of items. What do you see? So I definitely love these types of items. I love these handmade wooden items from yesteryear. I'm looking for the price tag. I think this one was $4.09. I hate they always end up falling off. But to find real wood items, handmade, you know they have stood the test of time, extra storage, extra place to put some decor, I think you can't even buy wood for $5.09 to make these nowadays, especially with knobs. And this is such a cute little cubby. Even though it's missing one of the knobs, I'm never worried about that. As us thrifters, we're constantly picking them up. And I guess I have it upside down. But, well, you just can flip them around whichever way you want those drawers to go. And the same thing, that one was $4.09. Nowadays, at the price of wood, I don't think you could even come close to buying wood to build that. These items I definitely always catch my eye and I'm happy to find when I'm out thrifting. Now I shared this jewelry box in one of my thrift hauls. I just absolutely love the detail. The velvet is in good shape, a little bit of masking tape and some breeze will make that clean up real nice. And I don't think it was badly priced. What was it, $7.09 I think? So that's not a bad price for something that just needs a little bit of paint job. And I cannot believe I found another one of these candelabras. A $3.09 was priced perfectly. All the pieces and parts are here. And then this beautiful clock. One thing I do when I'm thrifting is I do have a AA battery with me so I can check it out, make sure that it works. And when I spied this tray at the thrift store, I definitely thought going, oh my gosh, I know it's going to be a lot of money. But $4.09, I was like, okay, thank you. Ever just come across a piece going, I just love the uniqueness of this piece. I don't think I've ever seen or will ever see another piece like this again. So that's why I grabbed it. I don't think that was a bad price for $4.09. I know all the prices are going up and we'll see how it sells. So I'm going to add these two picnic baskets into this group because we are going to be using our Graco sprayer today, and what a much easier way to paint a picnic basket but to get it sprayed. And this grouping of flipped makeovers, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a lot of little pieces and parts, a lot of little hinges, a lot of little screws to remember at the end which one goes to which. Now, I don't know if I'm making anybody sad, but we are going to be removing this pinkish red picnic liner. I'm always uncomfortable reselling fabric. A lot of times I remove it. I just want to keep it general, and then spraying it, I'll just be making a hot mess out of it anyway. So, just going to rip it out, use it for storage, not so much as a picnic basket. So to remove some of that glue that was on the top, keeping that liner, and Chris is just using his multi-tool that has a sanding head on it that luckily this tool is nice and handy because it fits right in there. Basket had a little bit of brokenness, but not anything I'm too worried about. So I'm just going to be using some of this Starbond CA glue to glue it back down, make sure that it stays in place and that doesn't get any more damage to it. After I get it glued back down, I'm just going to take a little bit of sandpaper and smooth that glue out. Well, since I'm going through and removing all the price tags anyway, might as well, why I have the scraping tool, just get rid of this vinyl lettering that's on this tray. Okay, is it a happy day when you don't have to tape around a clock and the clock face actually came out? I was very happy about that. Okay, so I think I got all the pieces and parts all removed, any tags, anything off of that. Now just time to get them clean with some super clean. Just get all these items prepped before painting. Get any grime, grease, whatever is left behind. You know, they're thrifted items. I don't know what you guys thought about when you saw this grouping, if any of these were needy, but this one definitely, because they had put a top coat over top of that vinyl stencil, definitely needed to sand that smooth and get that very shiny off there. And then this type of homemade drawer system, we can tell that knob got broken off. It left a gouge out, so that definitely needs to fill in. And then this type of how they built it. There's lots of little nail holes that once we paint that, they'll just look like features that you want to show off. So you definitely want to get those filled in unless you want to show them off. And when I was cleaning this one, I was like, oh, I can remove this music box. This music box still works in this jewelry box. I'm very happy about that. That way I don't have to try to cover up and not spray the inside. I think I got ahead of myself when I started cleaning out these items. So this one here that was missing a piece of wood, Chris had to Durham water putty that little corner also, but it already has a water stains on it, and I can just already tell that this piece is just going to make white paint be yellow, and it's definitely going to have some bleed through. So I'm going to go through and shellac some of these pieces, some of this vintage pieces. A lot of whatever that stain is, it will yellow your white paint. And so to try to prevent that, I'm just going to go in with a couple coats of shellac. And then I'm going to go back in and hand sand where all those little nail holes were on this box, because if I did not fill that in, that would be a whole bunch of little holes through my white paint. So finally, we can get to spraying these items. We are using our Gray Coat sprayer. Absolutely love this. We use that black onyx ready to use paint from Walmart, a little bit watered down. Absolutely love the coverage that this sprayer gives. The nice thing about spraying objects is like this candelabra. Oh my gosh, how hard would this be to hand paint with a brush? But with a sprayer, it takes no time at all. And cubbies. Can we talk about cubbies and trying to hand paint cubbies? Whew, sometimes I would just, before we got the sprayer, we've gone through a lot of different sprayers, I would just get a can of spray paint because it was the easiest thing to do when it came to cubbies. Don't think I can think of an easier way to spray these type of baskets. This will just down these baskets in no time. So while we got that first coat of black paint drying, I'm going to go in and get some of this hardware all cleaned up. Yep, that hardware needs to be cleaned up. And the best way we find is just some hot water and Dawn dish soap. And nope, those handles didn't fit in my little cup. But then I just rinse it off and let them air dry before painting. Our go-to for hardware is always the Rust-Oleum paint and primer in the flat black. Now that it's all dry, we can get them flipped over and get the rest of the black painted. So I'm going to get this black sealed in, and I am changing it up. I am using Rust-Oleum in the matte clear coat. I know a lot of people are having a hard time finding the polyacrylic, and this is about half the price. So why not see if this will seal in that black and we're able to paint over it. I'm going to go ahead and test it out on my hardware pieces too. Now we're on that. Everything is dry, and now it's time to do the flat white. Our go-to is that Kills paint and primer. You ready to use right off the shelf from Walmart. So far, we've had no problems getting it, even though I do have quite a hoard, I have to admit. So I know some of you enjoy watching paint, but how much can we show paint, white paint being painted? So after 2 coats on the one side, we flipped it over and did another 2 coats. White is just that type of paint. To get the full coverage, you want to do a couple coats. So I do actually have 2 items that were staying black. This little jewelry box, I used some contact paper to protect that red velvet that's in the inside. I didn't mind seeing a little bit of that wood just to keep a nice crisp line. I'm just going to go in and distress the sharp edges of this piece using a 220 sandpaper, and then I'm not really going to do too much with that design until I get to the steel wool, and just let the steel wool, if it rubs off any of that, I just absolutely think it's beautiful. The jewelry box itself has this very cool detail. I'm excited to get that sanded, and so you can really see it. And then I want to sand the entire piece to open up that clear coat that I put on these pieces to accept the wax. I'm just using some of that Waverly Antiquing wax and just rubbing it on the entire, just letting it get into any of those grooves, bringing out where I distressed the piece, and just making that detail of those beautiful drawers just pop. I did the exact same sanding job to the clock and then antiquing this also. Now that the white paint is dry, I can go in and sand to distress the edges so I see a little bit of that black that we painted underneath coming through. The harder you push, the more you'll see the original color of the wood. The lighter you go over multiple times, you'll just see the black. It's just whatever choice you want. And distressing a piece is all personal. This is just the look that we like. And so I'm going over with, and then I'll go over with the 220 sandpaper and make sure the piece is nice and smooth. I used the air compressor and dusted everything off. This is nice and sanded, nice and smooth. So to go on with my next step for this, I had to attach the hinges on the door of this. So I am going in with this Tim Holtz. I am absolutely in love with this decoupage paper that I ordered off of Amazon. And so as you see, it's not the right size to go across, but because of all the wording going in a whole bunch of different directions, I can flip it. So I absolutely think that it'll work perfectly for this. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of extra that can wrap around this door. And the same thing, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of extra going in between where the whole sheet for the drawers. So unfortunately, even though I put the hinges on, now I have to take the hinges back off to apply the decoupage paper. Now for the drawers, I'm going to leave them right in. I want them to be spaced evenly. I want the paper to flow, even though I'm going to be cutting off some of the excess. And so I'm just going in with some matte Mod Podge and just putting a generous amount just right on the top. So to keep that flow going, I just did all three drawers at the same time. Now I'm just going to play around with this paper a little bit to make sure that I'm just going to eyeball what is centered. It's not a complete match, but I do find from doing those popcorn tins, if you have not seen that video, that this paper does stretch a little. Now after getting it centered where I like it, whatever's pleasing to my eye, I'm just taking a very sharp X-Acto knife and cutting. I'm not leaving it. I'm just putting the decoupage paper on the drawers. Now to put the Mod Podge on the top of the paper, I took them out, and that way I can get all those edges and make sure that they're nice and flat and secured. The same thing with the drawer. It's almost the exact fit, so I'm just going to do the same thing, Mod Podge underneath it, work the paper with my hands until it's pleasing to my eye, and then Mod Podge on the top of it and cutting off any excess. I'm going to be decoupaging this with some of that beautiful paper also, though it's going to be a different pattern, but I just absolutely love the ease of flipping an item using this paper. Now for this one, I'm going to be using this floral. I just absolutely love this. I actually ordered a second roll, but I have to say there is a lot on these rolls. A little bit goes a long way, I have to say. And the nice thing about it is you cut the piece off that you want, and then you center it to what pieces and parts where you want them to be on your item. It's the same exact process, Mod Podge. I know people don't like the way that I say it, but it is the way that I say it. I can't, I'm almost 50. How am I supposed to change the way that I say something? So anyway, so here I am just putting that back down, centering it back where I wanted a little bit, some of that flower, some of that wording, some of that pieces of fern. And then cutting off the excess. I have to say, there's not a lot of waste to this. And I'm going to finish over putting some of that Mod Podge on the top. I thought about cutting where the seams were, but this is a homemade piece, so those seams aren't very even, maybe giving it that stacked booked kind of appearance, and plus they are too wide apart, so I thought I'm just going to leave it as is and let that shadow be seen. So I don't know about you, but I see a lot of potential in this piece. I could really be going crazy with the decoupage paper. I could put it on the drawer. I could put it on that back wall. But I do think a little bit of pattern goes a long way. So I'm just going to choose to put it on the drawer. Just thought I'd give you a close-up of how much is on this roll. You know how thin this paper is? And the 3-pack was $23, so $8 a roll, and just so many projects that I can use this on. So as you can see, this is my favorite, and when it came to this drawer, I saw this beautiful wording on the next unroll of that roll, and I thought I definitely want to keep all that wording, so that's how I centered my piece of decoupage paper on this drawer. This drawer has a downward slant, so I am just putting it on that first surface area, Mod Podged it down, just cutting off the excess, very sharp Cricut X-Acto knife, and same complete thing, putting Mod Podge on the top of it to finish it off. Now I have these two beautifully painted picnic basket type items. Oh my gosh, I just absolutely love these in white. Who would have thought? So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of design on the front of them. So I need to make sure, since I do not have them put together because they're not waxed yet, where my hinges are and what places the front, because I don't really want to accidentally put this on the back. There's already pre-drilled holes, so I need to make sure that I have everything front and centered. So I'm going to be using one of my sheep from my IOD animal stamps. I'll link that down below, and then I have a wreath one that I bought off Amazon, so I'm going to be using this also, and I'll link that down below also. But I absolutely just think the simplicity of just the sheep and 2 pieces of this wreath. So for this project, I'm going to be stamping on some Dollar Tree tissue paper, just one piece, using that Stays On ink. So I'm just going to get my sheep all nice and inked up. I have him on a acrylic block. And then I just push down really hard, making sure that I have all my spots covered. I'm always worried that I'm going to miss a spot. So then I flip him over, trying to center him. I actually have this on my measuring side of my Cricut mat. I have a piece of vellum underneath so that I'm not stamping, because it goes right through the tissue paper onto your mat. I have learned that. And so I push hard, trying to make sure that I've gotten all the pieces and parts of the sheep image onto the tissue paper, and then I kind of do like a little 10-second count, giving enough time for that ink to soak in. So this is my cheater method, since I do not have one of the IOD pieces that have all the numbers and the circles for your letters. I did order one, so I'm excited to have that come, but for right now I just use an extra piece of this clear that comes on the stamps, so that I am able to put such a great big piece of wreath down. So I just place it where I want it, put this piece of clear on it, pick it up, and then get it all inked up. Yeah, I probably could have put the sheep on this at the same time, but why make things easy? I'm just going to keep it right on that clear plastic. I'm going to ink it up again, and then I'm going to put it on the top of the sheep. That's where I can see through this tissue paper, so I can see where I am centering. And now, because of my wonderful YouTube family and viewers like you who all commented, this is the simplest way to cut, tear tissue paper. I got my paintbrush, clear, just some water, just making a guide of water around my whole little image, and then I'm going to attempt to tear it off first time doing it right in front of you for you all. And thank you for all your tips. I love my YouTube family. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start tearing it apart. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe I've been trying to cut tissue paper my entire life, and this was the hack of doing it. Wow. So now I'm just going to be placing it on the front of this picnic basket. Yep, just the tissue paper, just letting it blend in. You know it's going to be an applique. So the same thing with the Mod Podge. I'm just going to start, fold it over like this, get one side measured or glued down, and then work our way on the other side. I'm kind of working in the middle of those slats. I know I'm not going to be able to push the tissue paper. I don't want to ruin out my image by trying to really push it in there, but I want to make sure that it's good and on, but I don't want to put so much Mod Podge on that it goes onto the inside of it, if that makes sense. And then just like that decoupage paper, there's no other easier way than just to smooth it out with your hands. Then I'll repeat the same process for the other side. And then the same thing like the decoupage paper too is some more Mod Podge over the top of the image. And the nice thing about it is that stays on ink, does not bleed with this. I have no worries about it smearing, but I want to make sure that my edges are good and adhered and glued down. And I'm going to go back with the wet wipe and make sure that I get any excess that is just on the basket itself. So now I have this smaller basket. So yep, I have to make sure that I'm going to have the front. That's why I grabbed the lid. And nope, it's not together yet because I still have to wax them yet. But I wanted to make sure that I get the image on. I'm pretty sure the image is not going to adhere properly if I would have waxed this first. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I am front and center where I needed to be. So as much as I love those IOD farm animal stamps, I absolutely love these Tim Holtz stamps that I got from scrapbook.com. I just absolutely love this little feed. Oh my gosh, I just love adding this. And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add all the animals and that feed to this little front of this little basket. And I know when the handles are down, it might cover it up a little bit, but that's okay. It still will be there. So I'm using that same hack where I put them in place where I want them to be, and then this piece of vellum to grab them all up so I know that they're going to be centered when I go to ink them up and place them back on the tissue paper. The nice thing about using tissue paper is if your image does not turn out, it's from the dollar store, get another section of it or throw it out and start all over again until you get the image transfer that you want. And yep, I'm going to do that same, a little bit of water on a paintbrush. And the nice thing about it is I have it on this graph mat. I'm not sure how you call them. I'm sure there's a technical term for them, but I can follow the line so I can have a nice semi-clean image, because we're going to be tearing it apart. It's not going to be completely clean, but at least I have a guide to go by. Where has this hack been my whole life? I cannot even tell you. Do you know how many years of 4-H my children have done and how many classes I have taught kids to do stuff? And yet, nope, we've always cut tissue paper, never ripped it like this. But thank you. You have just saved my sanity by sharing this with me. So the same exact thing, putting some of that Mod Podge down and then just working this tissue paper, this image in place. And then just going back in and getting any excess off with a wet wipe. So I actually only have one project that I'm going to be doing some stenciling on, and it's that large tray. So I just came up with, after some Pinterest searching of some ideas, is this black and white co. And so to make this wording curved on the silhouette, I have to go into my round object, my round circle, and then I have to kind of guesstimate what shape I want it to be and then size it semi-appropriate. And then once I get my size, I can go in then and pick out what font I want my letters to be. And then as I'm typing it out, I will go down and have it follow the curve of that to make it curved. And since I don't want to cut out that circle part, that oval, now that it's made, I need to go in and ungroup it and delete that oval. And then now I can go in and size it to what size I need it to be on the board, because I have one more word that I want to put underneath that arch. So I'm just going to be typing out the word registered in a font that I chose. And the nice thing about it is after I get it all typed out, if I don't think that font, which is a little too matching, I wanted 2 different fonts, I can change it out while I still have it highlighted until I get to the font that I want. I just go through my font list and keep changing it out. And then once I get that where I want it to be and it's pleasing to my eye and I feel like I have it centered, I will group it all together before cutting it out. I always add this into my videos because I have a lot of people that would like me to just do a silhouette or a cricket video, but I don't have time for that. So just adding this in a little bit more depth in each video is a little bit simpler for me. So now I just transfer my image. I like to cut as close to the lettering that I can, just so when I'm going to transfer over to the object that I can center it a little bit easier. I use that Duck brand clear contact paper as my transfer tape. And so when it came to that word registered, as you see, this has 3 slats on it, so I wanted to make sure that I was underneath that last slat when I was placing this on, so the top might be a little bit down, but that's okay. It's just supposed to have that old crate kind of look to it. Because this has those slats, I'm really going to make sure that I work this vinyl into those slats. Vinyl is definitely a little bit on the stretchy side, so I know I can work it down. I'm not trying to crease it in there. I don't want to break apart that vinyl by any means. I just want to make sure that it's good and attached. Because of having that open area of those slats, I'm choosing to go get a little bit of that Kills paint and primer that we use to paint this piece. This is just a personal preference. I don't want it to bleed underneath just because there's that open area there. So I'm going to go in with a couple coats of this white to make sure that I've got those edges sealed off with the white. Make sure that that white paint is good and dry. I am going to use the assistance of the blow dryer because I'm going to be putting black on next, and I definitely don't want my stencil color to be gray. So now I'm moving on to the apple barrel and black. The multi-use is usually what I always go to for my black stencil color, and a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree store. And when I'm doing this stenciling technique, I just put a little bit of paint, that dry sponging technique when there's just a little bit of paint. I don't want it to squish under and make a mess and underneath the stencil, so I will choose to do 2 to 3 coats depending on if it's getting to the black color that I'm looking for. There's a difference in not putting enough paint on it to distressing a piece. I just want that black that I'm looking for, like the bottle color. And then I'll use the assistance of the blow dryer again after I've achieved my 3 coats, drying them in between, making sure that I got the black color that I was looking for. So what this does is releasing that sticky, making it so that the vinyl is just coming off up and it's not pulling off that white paint. So I'm happy that I achieved the black look and my letters are nice and clear, but now I want to go in and distress them. Y'all probably think I'm crazy, but there's just a different look than getting enough paint on a stencil color than it is just going back in and distressing it. To prevent my stencil from smearing, I'm just going to seal it in with a little bit of this clear coat before waxing, along with everything that I had done the Mod Podge on, just to make sure that everything is nice and sealed in. And then I'll go through and then I will do some very thin finishing wax on the rest of the pieces. This is just one more level of protection. If you feel like you need to do a light buffing after whatever clear coat you used, I find that since the Rust-Oleum is a matte, I don't really feel like I need to do any type of buffing, but you can if necessary. So I'm just going to go ahead and wax all these pieces. Now the fun of playing which part goes to where, but most of the time as I'm separating them out on this piece of styrofoam, you can kind of eyeball which screws go to which hinges, which screws go to like these handles. I know some people ask like, how do you keep those all separated? You just remembering as you're taking them out, and then when you get them all washed up in paint, as we're putting them on that piece of styrofoam to spray them, I'm kind of separating them out anyway to what goes with what. So as a thrifter, I have a hard time at passing up knobs, and this is the reason why. Look, at that one was missing one of it that I was able to use all 3 on those smaller drawers, and I had almost a matching one which is a little bit bigger, to put on the door itself. So yep, I'm constantly looking for hardware when I'm out thrifting also. So I thank you so much for watching today's video, and what was your favorite? And did we inspire you in any way to look at thrift store finds in a new way? I thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you were part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new to our channel and checking out the content for the first time, please consider hitting that subscription button along with the notification bell. Thanks again for watching.